Hi,
All
Ben.
right. Well, go
Welcome.
ahead, Rasha.
All
Go
right.
ahead, Rasha. Floor is
Um,
all yours.
so as I was saying, before, this is a long time coming. This is something that the community has been working on, even through the downtown concept plan. It was in 2012. That was before my time actually. And when I was hired, when we were to update the CRA plan and to get our extension in 2016, we had incorporated all the plans from the community and all the discussions that we've had. And one of our commitments to Miami-Dade County and to the city as a CRA, as a benchmark, was to start a revitalization of the downtown as a premier economic development engine to not only help the CRA, but also help the city with new tax revenues and to, revitalize not only the downtown, but the city hall. I don't know about you, but I've been, I've had to take up stairs to get to the fourth floor almost every Monday because the elevator was always breaking down.
Oh
So for me,
man.
I'm like, I have vested interest. But anyway, I have to say, with all the things that was happening, one of the things that I was very grateful for is that the CRA board allowed me to hire our P3 expert, Kevin Crowder of Business Flair. Kevin actually, I know Kevin from way back when he actually was the economic development director for the city of Miami Beach and their CRA. Then he left and joined RMA, Redevelopment Management Associates. So Kevin is the one that actually did our plan in 2016. He's the one that helped us and did all the public workshops and helped us get to the county and have them, afford us the extension to 2044. So when he decided to go on his own and create his own company, he's actually done several other projects. He's, believe it or not, North Beach CRA. If you've heard, Miami Beach has another CRA coming. That is Kevin Crowder,
Mhm.
the one that they hired
Oh,
to do the finding of
nice.
necessity and do the plan. And that was actually approved by Miami-Dade County a couple of months ago. I can't say unanimously because I know Commissioner Martinez doesn't really like CRAs, but it was a 12-1 vote. So that's a very positive, you know, opinion of Miami-Dade County. So I was very fortunate that we were able to hire him. The CRA board allowed us to hire him. So I'm going to defer to him and mute myself, and I'll be there to answer any questions. And I have some other updates that are not the revitalization thing, but in terms of what it is that the CRA has been doing and what we plan on doing in the next couple of years. Um, he's going to talk about not only the what we intend to do, what we're working on. This meeting, the reason why I'm asking for it to be recorded is that this is our first public presentation of the downtown revitalization plan that we intend to do. We've briefed the mayor and council and so on, but you are the kickoff of our engagement outreach plan. We intend to do mailers to the whole community. We have already pre-scheduled open houses for like 3 hours long on Zoom, and we already have an email. We have a website. So Kevin's going to direct you to all of that, and we're also going to be asking for input not only as the DAPAC board, but residents. I'm talking to you, Jason. Um, residents and other businesses to make sure that we are incorporating your interest and your needs and we're getting it done as we should. And we are on a timeline. We need to get certain things done in a timely manner so we can keep it moving. Time is money for a developer. So when we put it out to bid, we want to make sure that there are no mistakes, that there are no delays, and that we attract the best and brightest to offer us the best deal ever for the city. All right. To that end, I defer to
Awesome.
Kevin Crowder.
No, that's awesome, and we appreciate you coming to us first. Like Tanya always says, we are the ambassadors of the downtown area and the district, and it's our job to help facilitate some of the visions that of all the studies and all the efforts that staff's put together. So thank you for that. And Kevin, thanks. Appreciate you joining the team. What do you have for us?
You got
We're
it.
ready to get impressed.
There we go. Thanks, Mr. Chair. And the one thing that Rasha didn't mention is that about a year ago, I decided that I just couldn't handle working out of my house anymore. And
Mm,
I actually opened my office in downtown North Miami in the Tate building.
mm.
And
Oh,
so
nice.
in addition to being
Yeah,
a consultant, we are one of your downtown businesses.
Oh, cool.
that's great. We love it. We love it. You're not the only one on this call. That's great.
We love it down here too. We love it here too. Um, so yeah, what I'll do is I've got a brief presentation, just kind of walk you through, touch on a couple of things that Rasha already mentioned. And then once we get through it, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, and we can hear comments from the board on, kind of, y'all's vision and what you'd like to see in downtown as part of this project as we move forward.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
All right, so Russia had mentioned, going back to even before her time, before my time here. Well, there we go. The prior planning that had been done. So we go back really looking at the downtown concept plan that Corodino had done, that was finalized, approved in October of 2014. And that's where the concept of this civic center complex, this public-private partnership, was first introduced. At the time, it was looking at, a new administrative building, introducing those other mixed uses, residential, those other uses into the site. And it really looked at here what we call sort of the super block, here where MoCA, police, City Hall are. You do have the northwest corner with some privately owned property. Also across the street to the east, you have the city parking lot to the east of Northeast 8th Avenue. There's some of the conceptual drawings that were done at the time as part of that project. And just an interesting piece of trivia, my urban designer is actually the one that did these drawings for Corodino back at the time. Then Russia mentioned, as we went through, when we did the CRA plan update in 2016, the number one goal out of 16 goals, the number one goal was downtown North Miami. And the top initiative that was identified there was public-private partnership development that we're talking about. And Rasha also mentioned, as you see in the middle, the benchmark that the county established, one of the benchmarks being the redevelopment that's moving forward with this project. So just real briefly, a P3, public-private partnership being what's been identified and we've been talking about for a while on how to accomplish this. Just in general, P3 it's a partnership with the private sector. It's not privatization. It's not outsourcing. It's really working with the private sector to leverage private capital to accomplish public priorities and bring public benefits to a project. It lets us access new sources of capital that wouldn't otherwise be available for a public project. The private component of it and the need to generate revenue to fund private and public components leads to expedited project completion compared to a traditional just public project. You leverage private expertise and you're able to transfer the risk to the party to the agreement that's in the best position to absorb it. And then obviously we're able to promote economic development with these private sector investment opportunities, both with this catalyst project as well as the additional spin-off investment and development that follows. When we look at how they're done over to the right, they can be done through a request for proposals. You can receive and consider unsolicited proposals, and you can even look at targeted sites to move forward with the P3. And below that are just some of the different types of agreements and structures that can come in. There's more than that can end up being part of a P3. In the case of North Miami, we're really looking at a request for proposal. That's what we'll talk about in just a minute. And then there will be a development agreement, some combination of ground lease, real estate transactions, maybe sale and lease back. And then we anticipate also some types of right-of-way agreements and easements that will be necessary. Some examples down here in South Florida where this has been done. Dania Beach, back in 2019, went through this process. They selected a preferred developer and began negotiations on their city center project, which is the southwest corner of Dania Beach Boulevard and US 1. There where their existing city hall and library is. They already had built a parking garage. Their negotiations with their developer were almost done when COVID came along, so everything's kind of been put on hold for the moment. Another one is Miramar Town Center, which is a really good example of a P3 in South Florida that brings mixed use, residential, cultural arts, as well as city administration building, as well as police. And then to the right, the Boynton Beach Town Square, very similar. Again, cultural arts, city administration, and those types of operations with mixed use commercial and residential development. On these,
Kevin, I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you okay with us asking questions along the way?
absolutely.
All right. So then I have the first one. You were talking about, you know, the development agreements on your previous slide and stuff like that. You know, how do we ensure that, you know, because I know the city in the past has entered into agreements with developers. And I know there's a lot of residents who are always very wary of developers and, you know, how they can sometimes take advantage, not all cases, but they can. So how do we ensure that, you know, if we move forward with this type of project in the downtown area, that we're negotiating the best deal for like us from the city perspective? Like, who's sitting at that negotiating table? Is it just our attorneys? Is it yourself and the CRA? Like, who's part of that negotiation team?
So the final negotiation team will be rounded out, but what I can tell you, and we do a lot of training of cities and CRAs of P3. I used to be on the board of the Florida Council of P3, and through that organization, we would do a lot of training. And one of the things that we tell them, I think is part of the reason that I'm here, as well as a couple of other consultants that the CRA has, is you're right. You're going to be sitting across the table from a real estate developer who's bringing his A team to the table. And you want to make sure that the public sector is just as well represented. I think that's why we're here. Between me and my team, we've got experience in probably more than 20 different public-private partnership deals and negotiations. We'll have the CRA attorney who's got significant experience doing these and understands those protections that need to be built in. And as well as the CRA, we has engaged a separate financial advisor who will be there, you know, digging in and understanding all of the specific details when it comes to the finances. And then us, you know, coming in and doing our review of their proposals, of their feasibility assessments, of their financials. So you really have a team that's done this before and has a good track record. And then when it comes to the negotiation and the final deal, the big thing that I can tell you is that we'll be focusing on is clarity. We want to make sure that every single thing in that agreement is crystal clear, and that there's really not a lot of room for sort of this loose room for interpretation, which is where we've seen these types of agreements run into trouble. Me and Kent, who's on my team, who worked with me in Miami Beach, we inherited some of those types of agreements. So I understand where you're coming from, absolutely.
Okay.
Can I add to that, Kevin? Our CRA attorney, Steven Zelkowitz, was actually one of the people that did the Miramar Town Center negotiation.
Yes.
So, and PFM Financial, which is the financial advisor that we hired that will be helping us. They just finalized the Hallandale Beach CRA deal that they just did. It was like about $38 million to finish. And the Hallandale Beach CRA, I just want to point out, they're sunsetting in 6 years. So this is this is the last end of their project, and you know they did all their loans, their financing, and they're on their way. And PFM Financial, and the PFM Financial also is the financial advisor for Pompano Beach CRA for their large innovation district, you know, mega block development that they're doing.
Yeah.
So try to get the best and brightest that are actually doing work to make sure that we are getting the best advice on our end as well.
Right, and the financial advisor is also working representing the city of Miami on the P3 they're doing on the Riverside Center.
Excellent. No, that's good. You know, to me, the more we have, I think, in our, you know, people looking out for us who are in our vested interest, I think the smoother it'll go on the back end, because I'm sure at some point this stuff has to get presented to the residents, the public, you know, and I just want to make sure that, you know, whatever is happening downtown, well, we'd like to hope that, you know, we're getting the best deal and we're getting all the best protections. That's the key word that you used, those protections and no gray areas. Because developers, they get creative sometimes when there's money, a lot of money on the line. So cool, that's good, that's good. All right, great, let's move on.
Got it. So that brings us to the site that we're talking about. You're all familiar with the site. So we have really kind of start with what we're just internally calling the super block, the block where MoCA is, City Hall, the police station. We're not, when we put this out to bid, it will carve MoCA out. And so the footprint of MoCA in that area for MoCA will not be part of the development footprint, but everything around it will be. In this case, the other thing that we're going to encourage proposers to look at is, and we've worked on projects like this. We had 2 significant P3s that we did in Miami Beach that did this, where the winning proposers brought along privately owned property as part of their proposals. So in addition to the public land, they were able to do an even better, more efficient project by bringing some going and working with some of the private landowners. So here, but we have the super block, we have the city lot to the east, and so that will be a unified site. We're working with planning on what we need to do between easements, et cetera, across Northeast 8th Avenue so that we can unify that site for land use regulation perspective. The city also owns these 2 parking lots on Northeast 126th Street. And so we're including them in there. I think what we're talking about, though, is that they would not necessarily be mandatory that development be proposed on those parcels, but we didn't want to exclude them. But we don't want to get a really great project on the super block that doesn't look at those projects and it not, not be considered. Those blocks are going to be important when it comes to the developers' timeline and phasing proposals for opportunities for staging or maybe even temporary city offices and trailers and that sort of thing. So they will be important. I mean, obviously, if a proposer was talking to some of the adjacent property owners, you could come up with a more efficient site up there as well. The site, all of the properties are within the NRO, within the overlay, which has height limits of 110 feet with densities of 90 units an acre. So we're working with planning on the specific sort of language and guidance we give in the RFP to the proposers when it comes to not just what those entitlements are, but things like setbacks and transitions from single family homes, so those types of impacts, so that they know in advance what we'd be looking for as a component of that zoning. Our timeline and our process. So we're right now in the due diligence phase. The surveys are almost final. We're reviewing the environmental phase 1s that we got last week and this week. The appraisals have been done. There's an infrastructure analysis underway that should be final any day. We're working with planning on, we have it listed here as a reservation of units. It's really initiating a conditional use process that will reserve the units. Up to 750 units under the NRO could be built as part of this project at 90 units an acre. And so we're going ahead to begin that process to get those units reserved. So again, that carves some of the time off what the developer is going to need in terms of his process. So hopefully he'll just have to come back and do an amendment to that conditional use once he has that site plan and concept plan, rather than start from scratch. We also have engaged and started this week with target of finishing at the end of September an updated space needs analysis for the city and police. So for what their operations need, so that we're able to say we're going to need a city hall of X square feet with these sorts of access and amenities, et cetera. The same thing for police. So we'll have that at the end of September to build into the RFP, so that the developers know it's very clear what they need to include for the public components. The last time a space needs analysis had been done was in, I think, 2012. Now, obviously, we're working through different financial projections between our team and the financial advisor on looking at, okay, even though we don't have proposals yet, and especially as we get the space needs analysis, we'll have some pretty good ideas, just order of magnitude on what we're looking at in terms of construction costs and infrastructure needs and those public realm costs and all of that. So we can start thinking about, okay, what are the different building blocks we can anticipate seeing in proposals for a funding stack to do this. And so that's another thing, again, trying to get ahead and upfront, thinking about some of those things rather than just wait for those proposals to come in. The other thing we're starting, and as Rasha said today, is sort of a kickoff of public engagement. So there's a number of things happening there. We'll be also starting today and through next week a participation drive to the public, and then in 2 weeks starting public engagement, where we will be having some virtual open houses you'll have a screen at the end that you'll see the specific dates again, but on the 21st, we'll be doing I think from 8 a.m. until maybe 1 o'clock, an open house, virtual open house specifically for downtown businesses. And this will be a combination of both formal presentation, taking questions, but also some opportunities for even some one-on-one engagement with your downtown businesses. And then on the 25th and the 26th, on Friday and Saturday, on Friday from about 3:30 till 7, and Saturday from, I believe, 9:30 in the morning until about 3:30, we'll be doing virtual open houses for the whole community, for residents, for businesses, for any stakeholders to participate. In addition, on Monday, we'll be launching a community survey to gather input about this project. And we'll direct you at the end also, as Rasha said, to the website where we'll be doing our updates on any meetings. When a meeting gets scheduled, we'll be putting it up there. When there's anything that needs to go out to the public, it'll be done on the website, and working with Rasha and her communication team, leveraging social media, television, radio, all of those different venues to get the word out. As we do meetings, just like the recording of this, we'll make that available so that people who aren't able to attend meetings will be able to see presentations and hear the discussions. And then we're looking at, on October 27th, we're going to the CRA board to issue the RFP and put it on the street. Cone of silence would begin at that moment. And with proposals due mid to late January. From the time the proposals come in through April would be the selection process. We'd go through staff review, the review by us and our teams and the consulting partners to the CRA for this, as well as evaluation committee, going to the CRA advisory board, going to the CRA board, the city council sitting as the CRA board, and in April having a recommendation and a selection by the board of the preferred developer and development concept. And then starting in May, we go into the negotiation.
Kevin, I have another question.
Sure.
Kevin, I'm sorry, I have another question. With the evaluation committee, you're saying that there's going to be an appointment process. Who's part of that evaluation committee?
That committee's not been established yet. Once we kind of get through the RFP and get this work done, getting the RFP out on the street, then we'll work with Rasha to give her some ideas on how to move forward and how to make those appointments. But it's the evaluation committees are generally.
But who's typically part of that? Like, are you talking like, is that usually staff members? Is that usually resident? I mean, who's like in your I guess typically when you've seen that in the past, like who usually participates in that committee?
Usually on these in the past, when we've worked on them, it's been a combination of staff and stakeholders.
But by stakeholders, that could be business owners in the area. It could also be residents.
It could be business owners, property owners, residents, a combination of.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. All right. Got it.
And then hopefully we'll be able to, the sort of one wild card that you always have in these timelines is the negotiation period. I've done these where the negotiation took 2 months, and I've done these where the negotiation took 3 years. And you don't have the moving parts that the ones that we've been involved in that take a long time had. Yours is pretty straightforward in what it is. And there's other good best practices and models. I'll tell you, the Boynton Beach one is very similar to this one, to what we're looking to do.
In what sense, Kevin? Like, what do you think is most similar that makes you think that, you know, we shouldn't have a big delay on this negotiation step?
I think just the process that they used is very similar to the one that we've used and that we're recommending here. And I think that the clarity, a lot of these RFPs, when they go out, again, you know, you want clarity in the agreement, always. Sometimes these RFPs go out without a lot of clarity built into them. Sometimes they do. And so we're trying to do as much of that as we can. Just like trying to do a lot of this due diligence up front, and just taking a few things even off the plate of the developer that sometimes, believe it or not, you see some stuff on here. I had a P3 bogged down because of just even getting who was going to pay on environmental studies, delay a negotiation for 4 months before. Well,
that's crazy, man.
So we're looking for those opportunities to be able to get it done and get moved into the design, permitting, and construction.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
So when we talk about the request for proposal itself, and this is again, we'll just another slide or two, and I'll turn it back over to you, and we can really hear, comments and input from the committee. But looking for a mixed-use active pedestrian downtown, something that's going to jumpstart, get that TIF going, both for additional downtown improvements and really improvements throughout the CRA. We want to grow that TIF. Looking again, this is sort of where the art of the RFP comes in, and obviously when we get into October, we'll have more of the language. We want to give that as much balance as we can to being as clear as possible and give as much direction and clarity as we can to the proposers, while still giving them enough space to be creative with their proposals. And give you just some great proposals, things that bring great design both to the public spaces as well as their developments, and things that are going to enhance just how people think and feel about downtown is going to be important. Then we've got the public benefits we're looking for: the new city hall, new police station, public parking, leveraging and really capitalizing on the public art. The one thing that you see at Miramar and Boynton Beach is the incorporation of cultural arts as part of those proposals. Well, you're ahead of that because you already have a cultural asset to leverage and capitalize on to bring even additional public art as part of a concept that developers bring. And then obviously the hotel, retail, office, restaurant, but different mixed uses that we want to introduce directly into the downtown. And then really some of the piece on the right, the public participation, is really what we're going through right now on the financial feasibility and working with that financial advisor on. Obviously there's the land is publicly owned, and so that's an asset, and that's a piece that can be brought to the deal to help buy down the public cost, the dollar cost for public assets. CRA working on the non-taxable items, the infrastructure, and implementing and funding the infrastructure improvements that are going to be needed, and then looking at other opportunities for tax increment finance if necessary and where appropriate for a specific project. And then what we're looking for the respondents to bring to us, again, this is a draft form, and we'll, this is generally the structure, is that we want to know who they are, who their partners are, their team, and what experience they have in both this type of development and public-private partnerships. Looking at what's their feasibility assessment, their market assessment when it comes to what they're proposing, their financial feasibility. What is their design? What's their concept? What's their site plan and their conceptual design for this project? And what's their construction and phasing timeline going to be? And then what are they proposing to the city in terms of the ownership structure, sell, lease, lease back, et cetera, of city land, that the business terms? What is their financial proposal? And what about ongoing maintenance and management and those types of more operational things? Because the thing we have to remember when we're doing a P3, I just showed you a timeline that goes through next May, but this is to do a partnership that's going to last 50 years. And so we've got to think that far ahead. And that is one of the benefits of a P3 that I didn't mention, is that when you think about a lot of times purely public projects are done and without really thinking through the full life cycle cost of a project. Whereas when you're doing a P3 like this and you've got that private sector partner, you have to think that way, because your private sector partner is going to make you think that way, and really think about all those different things. With that, I'll turn it back to you. This is our website. The project website is www.downtownnomi.com. We have the Downtown Business Virtual Open House the 21st, the 2 virtual open houses the 25th and 26th. Specific email address for this project, and this phone number is my office number, so that's right to us with any questions or any information needed for this project.
671-20. 671.
And I wanted to also add to Kevin's comment, those dates we've already set, but it doesn't mean that we're not open to create additional when the mailers go out, and we hope to get feedback from the residents and and the surveys that Kevin's going to put out and everything. But I've also, if there's any town hall, I'm going to reach out to like the homeowners association, the business associations. I've already emailed Dave Burney and the Haitian American Chamber of Commerce, because whenever they're having events or sessions, this is not just about the downtown revitalization in terms of development. It's about, growth for the city, job opportunities. We're talking about, professional trade work opportunities for people to prepare for. And long term, we're looking at, is it Almond Khan Apartments? I mean, the rendering that you see shows, we have two different kinds of designs, but you're going to have brand new apartments, you're going to have brand new retail. And what does that mean? And one of the things also, I think when we were briefing the CRA board, Councilman Galvin had brought up about, well, what about the businesses in downtown and so on? Our plan, the CRA plan, calls for helping relocation of existing businesses and even residents. If we do a development project, we're not just going to kick you out and tell you, later, deuces, but we do have grant program to assist the business to relocate them to a new location. And, the fact that the CRA is partners in this P3, we will be able to possibly negotiate moving them back into after the development is done, or moving them somewhere else within the CRA. So I don't want people thinking, and that's another thing, misnomer, like, oh, we're going to gentrify the downtown, we're going to create all this problem. Couple of feedback that I got, and I hope we hear from you today, because I know Kevin has his pen ready to take down your comments and your suggestions. But one of the comments that I got was, well, we want to see a slower 125th Street. We want to see wider sidewalks, more pedestrian friendly, slow down the traffic. If we're doing this kind of development, we want to be able to walk around. And I think that's something that we've been talking about for a while when we talk to the businesses across the street, that, it's always been a challenge to just cross the street to go and patronize those businesses. So this would be an opportunity for us to, incorporate that into the development and say the community needs a slower 125th Street so that it could be a proper, walkable downtown and have sidewalk cafes and greenery and bike paths. I was told also about bike paths. So now we pass it on to you. I know our time is short. I think we took up most of your meeting time and you have other items.
That's okay. This is an important topic.
I just want to hear from you if you can.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing.
Sarah, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the only thing that this may sound crazy as a concern, but, I'm a homeowner and a business owner. One of the things I feel like I hear often when you go to some of the community or homeowner association meetings is this kind of sense that they're not involved in the process. And as odd as it seems, while I know that you have 2 community virtual open houses set up, not having a joint event doesn't really allow for homeowners to understand why some of the decisions are being made. I think that, like the concerns of the businesses are vital to the decision-making process. But if homeowners are not hearing those concerns or are not privy to why you guys are building your design around, increasing our businesses and improving our business corridor, it makes it a little bit challenging. So I know you said that the meetings were going to be recorded or somehow available to homeowners, but if we could do some additional kind of education component for the community at large so that they understand why why decisions are being made, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, that is, like I said earlier, it is on my list to talk to the homeowner association and to get that settled. And also, again, the NOMI vendors, the downtown vendors. I know Kevin already has a downtown business open house, but like I said, those dates are not set in stone. Those are just the main ones that we're doing. But throughout, we are still talking. And by the way, that email you see at the bottom, downtown NOMI, if you try it now, I'm the one responding. It's like literally, and I can do it on my phone too, which is not good because I need to sleep. But we are making sure that we are able to, answer and discuss it to the community. And Ms. McDevitt, I'm gonna just go ahead and call you Sarah now that we're BFFs and you're on my advisory committee. I would love your assistance in helping us, set up the residential Zoom association meetings.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And one thing I would,
Max, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, Max?
Yeah.
There's two design components, but there are also community components. And one is for the last 20 years, we've been designing on a pretty large scale, all of us, for, LEED and environmental concerns. And we're talking about climate change. How are those considerations being included in the proposals, designs, the program? And now for the last 6 months, the way we've experienced, the way we're working and living, even if this gets resolved, hopefully in the near future to a certain degree, planning ahead for how these building spaces, rooms, access, all these kind of things will be designed so that they can accommodate some kind of an issue like this without having to shut the entire complex down. So, basically the climate response and COVID response as part of the overall project, because we want something that's working, 10 years from now too.
So
yeah, and an adaptable space, right?
So the question is, I'm not trying to design, I'm trying to ask how is this being incorporated in the RFP, the program, the design, the management, the whole thing? Where is it in the requirements?
So
I'm not asking you to tell me, I'm asking you to consider it.
We absolutely will consider it. Now, I can go ahead and tell you some of the stuff we've already talked about and considered. When we talk, I'll talk about some of the adaptable pieces that we want to give guidance on. And one is not so much related to climate, but just in terms of uses. And we've worked on, this is part of what we worked on with the P3, with the North Beach Town Center over in Miami Beach, and looking at, and it was really important for the city in looking at even the adaptability of the built structures like a parking garage, because we don't know what's going to happen with autonomous vehicles and Uber, Lyft, all that in 4 years. And so just even having things like a parking garage adaptable to other uses, depending on what those trends are, without knowing exactly how that's going to happen, is one of the things that we're looking at. When it comes to climate change, infrastructure, resiliency, one of my team members, and one thing that we're tasked with as part of our scope for the CRA, which is more than the P3, but that's related to the P3, is one of my team members was my grant writer in Miami Beach. She was also the planning director for Mount Sinai, and she is what we call the queen of FEMA. And she is brilliant at finding resources for both pre and post disaster, for mitigation funding for public facilities. So she's specifically tasked as part of my team in identifying the things, the funding resources side to harden all of the public facilities that come as part of this. Then the architect who's doing the space plan for the city, the new city, what the city hall and police needs are, part of the language she will be providing us to go in the RFP will include resiliency type guidance without getting too specific into design. But obviously giving them the expectation that it be addressed as part of their concept. And I can also tell you, you pretty much see a standard with these projects now when they go out, these types of City Hall P3 projects, of a minimum of LEED silver.
Okay.
Good. And the garage example you gave is perfect, because it's a matter of, when we don't have cars in there in 10 years or 15 years, 8-foot ceiling heights aren't going to work because we haven't planned ahead for utilities. So it costs more to build a taller space, but it doesn't cost more 10, 20 years from now when we're using it for something else. So that's the kind of thing. It's just planning.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
anyway,
thank you.
Right, and we will be, now you mentioned that, we will be in the RFP also telling them that they should, their proposal should include on the site undergrounding of utilities.
Yeah.
Okay. The only question I had was early on the slides. You said something that you guys are in the process of preparing the surveys with the consultants of the space of the area. Is that only for the super block, or is that also for those other little ancillary pieces, those 2 parking lots on the north side and then also on the east? Sorry.
What the space planning is looking at is what the city operational needs are going to be.
No, not the space planning, the survey.
The survey. Yes, all of them, all the properties that are going to be involved in the
They're all, okay, good.
Are surveyed and environmental phase 1 tested.
Assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
We're trying to do as much as possible to eliminate any delays or, these things on the developer side, to show that not only are we ready and willing and open for business, but it's not a burden to them. And we're going to be, negotiating and even facilitating and working with our partners the planning department to ensure that, you know, these, whatever they need to get done gets done. So that's like an added bonus for a developer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I was going to say is like, you know, even though the super block is our main focus, if we want them to even entertain getting creative with those other spaces, we'll have a better shot at getting more feedback from them if we just set it up and gave them the survey for those sites. So they're not investing in any costs, you know, kind of do that themselves, or, you know, trying to figure out, oh, hey, you know, do we do this on the area, or how to use the space? If they have the survey, it's a lot easier. So that's good. That's excellent. Great foresight.
I have a question.
Sure, Stuart. Is that your hand up, Stuart?
Yes, it is. Thank you. I was wondering if the whole development becomes city property after 50 years, and I'll let you answer, and then I have a follow-up to that.
It's hard to answer that question yet, because we don't. It's really going to depend on what the proposal structure, the deal structure, the developer proposes. A lot of the times, yeah, at least sometimes you won't have all of the components, but a lot of the time what happens is the public components will revert back to the public after a period of time, of 50 years with an option or whatever that time is. Yeah.
So we have a few projects like that, and the concern is how do you handle maintenance near the end when they start deferring maintenance because they know they're not going to own the building in 10 years, so they kind of nurse things along, and you're left with having to replace major systems in the building, and similarly demolition at the end. If there's new higher and better uses in the future, who pays for the demolition? So those are two things that we've encountered in the projects that we've negotiated. So I hope you guys will watch out for that. And I like hearing at least LEED certified. LEED Silver is a plus, but I think that'll get you a better long-term building that's more efficient to run. You know, better indoor air quality, things like that, that all of a sudden have become really important with COVID. The idea that you have better ventilation, better energy usage, all of that, LEED helps you focus on long-term life cycle costs rather than first costs. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. I heard there was someone else that had another question. I heard, no? Okay. All right. Well, no, this is excellent. I mean, your presentation was pretty straightforward. I think it was really good, very thorough. I think I'm shocked that this has all been happening behind the scenes, and you guys have already put this plan together. Rasha, I know that I briefly spoke with you a couple months ago, and you seem to have something in your back pocket, and I'm assuming this is what it was. So I think it's great. I'm very excited for it. You know, I think at any point where you think DAPAC could help step in, I'm thinking after the studies and after you get the surveys and stuff like that, if you want to share any of those things with us, maybe we can, you know, maybe help come up with some just some generic concepts. I know we have the stuff in our master plan, but as you said, that stuff was approved 8 years ago. You know, things, you know, there's been a lot of that's happened in urban planning when it comes to complete streets and other types of design approaches that have changed since 2012. So if there's anything that we can do as our board to help bring that, you know, vision, you know, to life in terms of how it would look, you know, we have some resources on the board to help with that. If you need anyone on that committee, that decision committee, I'm sure there's somebody on DAPAC who would be more than willing to help with that as well. So thank you both for the presentation, and we look forward to helping however you think we can. I mean, you guys let us know. I mean, do you have any areas right now, I guess, in the near future, in that process and that timeline? Do you have any? Can you identify anything where you think DAPAC can help with any of those steps? I know public engagement is obviously one, but is there anything else?
Public engagement is one, and then maybe there may be even some things we're thinking about that we want to put in the RFP that we may want to come back and kind of try and validate with some of the downtown folks.
Okay.
A good venue for that.
Yeah. Okay. And it could be scope. It could be scope language. We can help with that, or conceptual planning. I think our board is more than capable of helping with that stuff.
Sure.
And also,
Cool.
I just want to say that what we'll do is, you know, as we're updating the CRA board and the advisory committee, you know, on a regular basis until we put out the RFP, I'll make sure to send updates through Linda to the committee, just to keep you up to date. And again, if you have questions, you can call. Kevin's team is manning the phones, but I will be manning the email myself. So all your emails to the downtown NOMI, at northmiamiFL.gov, come to me directly, and you'll get a response right away. In case I'm like, unless I die or win the lotto, I will be here, answering, responding in a timely manner. But yeah, and definitely,
Cool.
Sarah, I will be contacting you for you to help and may possibly introduce us to the homeowners association.
That'd be great. Awesome. Excellent. Well, okay, good. Again, I think this was all beneficial for all. We appreciate the hard work that your team has been working on, Rasha. We do appreciate, all the new ideas and the energy. That only fuels us more. It fuels me more to keep going on this downtown thing, because I really feel like downtown is so past overdue, and we see it happening in other areas. And I think a P3 is an excellent idea. I've heard of positives from both the Boynton one and the Miramar. Miramar, I've heard positive and negatives, but overall, I think the main thing is like you said, getting the protections and getting that developer agreement solidified up front. Because like Stuart says, people are your friends in the beginning of those 50 years, but then the developers that you work so hard with over that time, towards the end, you don't want them to leave us with something that is not going to be good, or that we're going to have to invest tons of cash just to get and reuse it. But for now, it sounds all positive, and I think the more we do up front, I think the better ultimate result that we're going to have with the use of the space. So thank you all for your hard work on this.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.